there. Thank you for choosing Citizen TV on this second day of December 2024. This is the Monday Report, and I am Sam Gituk. I'm sitting in for Trevor Mbija. And tonight we're paying some special focus on the status of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. We have in studio panelists who will help us walk that journey of what exactly is the fate of that commission. What can they do now? What are they not able to do? What is the solution? Because it has been more than 22 months since those offices became vacant. There has been attempts to select new or to recruit new commissioners, but that has not been working. We'll be talking to them. Evans Ogara is an advocate of the High Court. Dr. Alphonse Kanga is the NCCK chair in Nairobi region, and Dr. Ekuru Aukot is the party leader of the Third Way Alliance. They'll be helping us walk that journey. But first, here are the top stories tonight. Close down your boarding sections. Government orders 348 primary schools for failing to meet safety standards.
Nadhani kuna watu mpaka saa hii wako hali mbaya, wako ICU. Kuna watu wamevunjika spinal cord, wengine wamevunjika meno, na mpaka saa hii county walikuja hapo waka access. Kwa nini wasenge access kuta wote nzima yote hii? Death
at a funeral. 5 mourners killed in Jomvu in Mombasa after a wall collapsed following heavy downpour. Paralysis at the KU hospital as doctors and other medical staff down tools to protest suspension of their health insurance. No end in sight for IEBC paralysis. Country staring at constitutional crisis as lack of commissioners delays by elections and boundaries delimitation. Good evening. Our sign language interpreter is Yola Nzale. Now, the Ministry of Education has ordered the immediate closure of boarding sections in 348 primary schools across the country for failure to meet safety and compliance standards. This follows an extensive assessment conducted in September and October 2024 to evaluate the adherence of these institutions to safety standards for basic education institutions.
In a circular dated November 27, 2024, Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang revealed that the schools in question were found to have grossly violated key safety provisions in assessment carried out between September and October 2024. The Ministry of Education has, as a result, instructed regional, county and sub-county directors of education to enforce the closure of the boarding section in these primary schools with immediate effect. Nairobi leads with the highest number of primary schools to be closed following the assessment that was done after a tragic fire incident at Hillside and Arusha Academy in Nyeri County in September, where 21 boys died after a fire broke out at the school dormitory at midnight, leaving others with injuries and property of unknown value destroyed. At least 348 schools were deemed non-compliant, with the government directing they operate as day schools from January 2025. Major concerns pointed out during the assessment exercise include dormitory safety, sanitation, fire equipment maintenance, and overall learner welfare. Some of the notable schools affected in Nairobi County as per the circular include Visa Oshro, Thika Road Primary, Jonathan Gloag, Don Bosco Primary School, St. Anne's Preparatory School, and Happyland Academy. With only a month to go before these schools reopen, parents have been affixed to make alternative arrangements for their children, as these schools will henceforth only operate as day schools. Lillian Muli, Citizen TV.
Now, 5 people have died and 3 others are nursing injuries after a perimeter wall collapsed on them during a funeral service in Miritini, Mombasa County. According to the residents, the victims were attending the burial, or a burial had sheltered close to the wall, which collapsed after a heavy downpour. Residents have faulted the county government of Mombasa for not taking action against rogue contractors, claiming it's a second incident in that area. However, Mombasa County Executive Member for Transport and Infrastructure, Daniel Manyala, has said action will be taken against all those found culpable.
Hiyo pikipiki kwa? Kuto sijui. Pale ndio naambia penye watu walikuwa. Kapi.
Mvua ikazidi. Kuzidi ndo tayari ukuta watu wakawa wameenda kujiziba hiyo mvua kwenye ule ukuta. Ndo ukuta tayari na ukashuka wote tayari hapo.
Mtoto amvunjika mkono mara 3 na huyo mama amvunjika sehemu za kiuno huku chini na kichwa, na kuna mvulana pia na huyo jamaa mwingine amvunjika kabisa huku kwa kiuno nyuma.
Wiki kama za kuhesabu ama miezi ya kuhesabu, hii ukuta hapa ndani iliumiza watu. Nadhani kuna watu mpaka saa hii wako hali mbaya, wako ICU. Kuna watu wamevunjika spinal cord, wengine wamevunjika meno, na mpaka saa hii county walikuja hapo waka access. Kwa nini wasenge access kuta wote nzima yote hii?
Nafikiri hii ni onyo kwa wale wote wenye wanaofanya ujenzi kama hizi bila kupata taratibu. Maana tunavyoona hapa ni kuna sehemu ziliongezwa tu juu. Iliongezwa juu, sehemu zingine ni refu kushinda sehemu zingine, na labda hii ndio imechangia ukuta ikawa ni haiwezi kustamili.
Health services at Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital were paralyzed following a strike by doctors and other medical staff. The healthcare workers are protesting the abrupt suspension of their health insurance by the hospital board. The medics are demanding the immediate removal of Acting Chief Executive Officer Isaac Kamau, accusing him of mismanagement. And our Citizen TV's Ben Kirui now reports patients were left to bear the brunt of the standoff, with many going unattended.
It was business unusual at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital as doctors abandoned the hospital wards and took to the streets. Their protest was sparked by the abrupt suspension of their medical cover by the hospital's board. The doctors are demanding the immediate reinstatement of their medical cover and reimbursement of their out-of-pocket medical expenses incurred during the suspension. They are also calling for the removal of Acting Chief Executive Officer Isaac Kamau and the reinstatement of the substantive CEO Ahmed Dagane, who was sent on compulsory leave last week. Dagane was suspended over allegations of irregularly awarding a 287 million insurance tender.
We don't like going on strike. We don't. Our core business is to treat patients. Yes. Actually, we're missing our patients who like to be in the wards. Yes. But right now, even us, we are at risk. And the reason we are here is our medical cover was withdrawn. Yes. For the last 22 hours, we don't have a medical cover.
We say, yes, if the 3 demands are not met, yes, within 24 hours, it will be a total paralysis of the hospital services.
Shida ya hapa KU ama hospitali ya KU inaongozwa na lile baraza ambalo linaamua maamuzi ya vile hospitali itakavyoendezwa ama endeleshwa. Na hiyo ndio shida kubwa mahala hapa. Kama sio hiyo, wafanyikazi wangekuwa wanalipa malupulupu yao.
The strike left patients stranded, with many forced to seek treatment elsewhere. The hospital's waiting area was packed with unattended patients, some seen lying outside in despair.
Sikupata daktari. Sasa nimechoka, nina wasichana wangu wamenileta. Nimekoboa uba, metoka bari na sijatibiwa. Nilikuwa na shukari na presa. Ndio inanisumbua tena kuviba miguu.
Tumekuja asubuhi kuleta mama, tulikuwa tunakuja clinic. Alikuwa amefanyiwa operation like 3 weeks ago. So tukukuja tukakuta madaktari wanatoka, kidogo tukasikia wamegoma. Sasa sisi tunauliza wamegoma, kuna wagonjwa wengine wako sick kabisa, watahudumiwa aje?
KUTRH employees are now urging Health Cabinet Secretary Deborah Baraza to intervene, accusing the hospital board of prioritizing self-enrichment over employee welfare and patient care. In a memo issued on Monday, the hospital management apologized for the disruption caused by the suspension of medical services and reassured staff of its commitment to restoring uninterrupted medical support. The ongoing conflict between the medical staff and the management at KUTRH risks impacting the patients severely, as the doctors at this hospital declare a total paralysis if their basic demands are not met. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, tonight, the country is staring at a constitutional crisis over delays in the appointment of IEBC commissioners. Legal battles and lack of political will to fill the positions have left several constituencies and wards without elected representatives and paralyzed the boundaries delimitation. A selection panel that had been listed to undertake the process of identifying commissioners to fill vacant positions has been suffocated in numerous court cases to date. Here is Stephen Leto with the current state of IEBC.
A towering structure that houses the IEBC along the University Way in Nairobi has for many months now remained just a tower. This secretariat has been doing just simple office chores, with critical decisions supposed to be undertaken by commissioners stalling. Crucial operations at the electoral agency came to a standstill following the retirement of former chairman Wafula Chebukati and ex-commissioners Abdi Guli and Mboya Molu, who had served their 6-year non-renewable term. The other commissioners, known to be the Chirera Four, were pushed out after falling out with the rest over the 2022 presidential elections. A panel that had been listed to come up with qualified persons to fill the positions have all been dragged into a protracted legal battle. So far, 2 court cases are pending in court, both in Nairobi and Kiambu. One petitioner claims there was no regional balance in the names of the empanelment list. The absence of the commissioners forcing the IEBC to write to the Office of the Attorney General over pending by-elections. According to the Attorney General, in the absence of the commissioners, no gazette notices may be executed for publication to facilitate the conduct of any by-election, as the same will lack the sanction of the commission, thereby violating the Constitution. That means that Banisa, Magarini and Ugunja voters will have to wait longer, as IEBC, as currently constituted, cannot conduct by-elections. 8 wards, including Kisa East Ward in Kakamega, Chawani Ward in Tana River, Nyamai Ward in Nyamira, are also affected. The boundaries delimitation is also in abeyance following the crippling of business at the anniversary towers.
The matter is still pending before the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court renders its guidelines now and say, for example, we are able to do it as secretariat, then we can go ahead and do it. But also there's a question of who can also extend the timelines now that the timelines are already over.
The last review was concluded in March 2012, which means the last review was to have been concluded by March 2024. MPs at last month moved to grant the House powers to extend the boundaries review period that is currently between 8 years to 12 years. Boundaries delimitation, if undertaken, could see the number of wards increase from the current 1,450 units. Some constituencies could also be merged into one, while others may be split as long as the total number remains 290. The preparation for the 2027 polls is also in limbo, with all eyes now on President William Ruto, judiciary and parliament to unlock the impasse. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
And with that, I want us to engage our panelists here in studio because they'll be helping us walk about the state of IEBC at the moment. Ivan Sogari is an advocate of the High Court. Dr. Alphonse Kanga is the chairperson of NCCK Nairobi region. And Dr. Ekuru Okot is the party lead of the Third Way Alliance. Dr. Okot, let me begin with you. What exactly do we have today when you're talking about the IEBC? What do we have?
So there are 2 arguments to make. Number one, we actually have an IEBC, constitutionally and legally speaking, because IEBC is an institution. What we do not have are the commissioners. A lot of people are confusing the idea that because we do not have commissioners, we do not have the institution of the IEBC. And they need to refer to Chapter 15 of the Constitution of Kenya. There is an IEBC. So we have a secretariat currently without commissioners. And that secretariat undertake certain functions, for example, the continuous registration of voters and carrying the activities of the electoral management body. Okay? For example, you don't need commissioners to register voters. That is done by the Secretariat, because the Secretariat is a functioning arm of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the IBC. So it's a fallacy to say that we do not have an IBC.
Okay.
We do have an IBC. Secondly, the absence of commissioners does not necessarily mean that we do not have a commission in place. Because, for example, the Supreme Court of Kenya, I think, had made certain decisions about the principle of, I mean, Ogada can remind me about this, necessity. Yeah? In the absence, I mean, of, say, for example, so we have, for example, Marjan, the CEO.
The CEO, right.
Yeah? Who actually sits as a commissioner in ex officio capacity. So,
though he sits in the commission as secretary.
Yeah, but he's a commissioner in ex officio capacity. Okay, so meaning therefore that under the principle of necessity, certain functions must happen. Okay, let's come to the realpolitik. When, for example, Kindiki Kithure was nominated as a deputy president,
right?
Purportedly, he was cleared by an IEBC.
Okay.
So which IEBC actually cleared Kindiki Kithure?
And we'll get to that question. We'll get to it. We're just starting the conversation, Daktari. Dr. Kanga, tell me, what risks do you see if we are to continue 22 months later, we don't have commissioners appointed to those offices?
In my opinion, what I say, as he said, my colleague says here, that we have an IPC. But what we are saying here is there is lack of transparency, there is lack of clarity, especially to Wanjiku, the normal mwananchi, to understand exactly what's happening. Because the lawyers have a language there. But as far as we are concerned as laymen, what we know that there is a lot of unfairness. The fact that there's no IBC, the youth want to register so that they can become, they want to get IDs and participate in the justice system of their country, but they will not be unable if the IBC is not in place. But since he's saying there's an IBC, 50-50 I might say, yes, we have an IBC because recently we have a deputy president who came in through the same systems. Whether it's right or not, I'm not a lawyer. But the normal mwananchi, there are a lot of the registration which is supposed to be going on. Why it's not happening? All
right, we'll get there's a narrative we need to stop.
Dr.
Sorry.
Allow me, because
I want Ogada to comment on what I'm about to say.
What is the narrative that you don't like?
Listen, we need to stop this narrative that there is no IEBC.
Okay.
I don't know what Ogada would say.
I've heard you. Now, Wakili Ogada, so there are different interpretations here. Then what I'll ask you is, what can IEBC do or not do as currently constituted?
Well, Marjan, the secretary or the CEO, heads the administrative component of IEBC. So as my good friend and senior Dr. Okot says, there is an IEBC, only that we have a handicap. For example, we cannot conduct the by-elections, which require substantive commissioners appointed in conformity with Article 88 as read with 89. We also need substantive commissioners for the purposes of boundary reviews to happen. And that is why there is a matter that has been instituted at the Supreme Court, an advisory opinion by the Secretariat, seeking answers from the Supreme Court as to what is the fate of boundary review in the absence of substantive commissioners, given that the timelines have basically effluxed.
Right.
So we wait for the Supreme Court to give us its answers, but certainly there are handicaps existing already.
Okay, all right. And there's so much to cover tonight because we'll also be looking at the other functions of the IEBC, which include voter education, the voter registration that Dr. Okot is talking about here, but also regulation of campaign financing and so much more. Be sure to catch that. But first, we want to focus on another story where Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi says the executive continues to receive heavy criticism from media and Kenyans at large because of the country's mature democracy that is an envy to regional, continental and global partners. Speaking during the launch of the country's 2024 Foreign Affairs Policy document at the KICC, Mudavadi says Kenya has taken leadership positions for political and socio-economic gains that will include improved infrastructure and trade development. Seth Olale reports.
With religious leaders taking on the executive, especially President Ruto, over the country's state of governance,
we have seen represent Kenya.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi says the state will uphold tolerance and extend the freedom of independent institutions, which is part of its renewed foreign policy.
The president is always receiving a fair share of the pounding from the media, but one thing is clear: we have to protect the freedom of the media as part of our foreign policy.
President William Ruto's assumption of the EAC leadership, as well as Raila Odinga's AUC chairmanship bid, which continues to gain momentum, being part of a strategy to advance Kenya's diplomatic ties for political and socio-economic gains that will include improved infrastructure and trade development.
Kenya's commitment to strengthen this leadership role is demonstrated by its candidature for the African Union Commission chairperson.
The celebration of the 60th anniversary of the country's diplomatic journey at the KICC being graced by heads of missions and international organizations who also graced the launch of the 2024 foreign policy document, as well as awarding brand ambassadors for their diplomatic excellence and lifetime achievements.
This policy centers citizens and the diaspora as both owners and drivers of the policy.
Kenya has flown its flag very high. It's a country which is recognized very easily globally.
I am deeply committed to ensuring that the High Commission plays its role in translating the strategic plan into tangible benefits for our people.
There you go.
The reviewed policy has updated the 5 pillars of the 2014 document: peace diplomacy, economic diplomacy, diaspora diplomacy, environmental diplomacy, and cultural diplomacy. Kenya intends to leverage on its foreign policy document 2024 in order to have advances and gains in the political, socio-economical space globally, regionally, as well as continentally. Seth Olale, Citizen TV at the KICC, Nairobi County.
And shortly, Safina Chengom will be delving deeper into the history of Kenya's diplomatic policy, the foreign policy, and some of the areas that Kenyans need to pay attention to. But in the meantime, President William Ruto has called out his former deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, for being a tribal leader, a trait he says will not be welcome in his government. The president, who spoke in Taita Taveta as he embarked on a 2-day developmental tour, has also warned any leader in his administration propagating tribalism of dire consequences. Kamau Mwangi has more.
The launch of the Paranga Rural Electrification Project under REREC in Undanyi, Taita Taveta County provided a platform for President William Ruto to go all out against his estranged former deputy, who he continues to level as a tribal leader.
Kenya hii ni Kenya moja, ama mnasemaje? Mnasema niunganishe hii Kenya ama mnataka kututenganishe? Mnasema tuunganishe? Na mimi nataka niwahakikishie wale wote wanaabudu sanamu ya ukabila, tutawachana na wao. Sisi wote ni ndugu moja jameni.
Ruto and Gachagua have sought to politically address each other publicly as they muscle to prove their popularity.
Hatutaki migawanyiko. Hatutaki ukabila. Hatutaki chuki. Tunataka tuungane ndio tuweze kuwafanyia kazi watu wa taifa la Kenya, wakiwemo watu wa Taita Taveta County.
The TIF now pulling in cabinet secretaries, especially those who onboarded government under the broad-based arrangement.
Tutasimama imara, na wakituletea mbaya tutaletea mbaya sana, na wakileta noma tutaletea nini? Wakileta mbaya, wakileta noma.
Sisi kule kwetu tumeamua ya kwamba tunafanya kazi na Mheshimiwa Rais, tunamuunga mkono kwa njia yoyote. Leo, kesho na milele.
The electrification project meant to connect 6,000 households also saw the president drum up support for some of his government policies, such as the affordable housing, even as he rallied Kenyans to register for the Social Health Authority.
Hatutaki tena mambo ya afya iwe ni ya wale watu wako na kazi, wale watu wako na uwezo. Tunataka kila Mkenya ambaye anaishi taifa letu tuwe na mpango yake ya kuhakikisha akiwa mgonjwa anaenda hospitalini, anatibiwa na bima ya afya inalipa.
Mimi naomba tumpatie nafasi rais wetu, mambo ya afya anyoroshe. Anyoroshe asinyoroshe? Taifa ke anyoroshwe sinyoroshwe? Mambo ya elimu isuluhishwe sisuluhishwe? Hawa wengine ambao wanataka kufanyia mtihani rais baada ya miaka miwili ya uongozi ni unafiki mkubwa.
Kwa makofi mazuri tumpunge. Kamau Mwangi, Citizen TV.
All right, it's now 25 minutes past the hour. We're taking a short break here on Monday Report, but remember that story I told you about, a deeper analysis into Kenya's history on international relations. Safina Chengo will be talking about that, but let's take a break first. Welcome back. You're still watching Monday Report. And now let us delve deeper into the global, regional and local issues shaping the country's foreign policy in the wake of shifting dynamics politically and economically. Safina Chengoma spoke to Macharia Munene, a professor of history and international relations, who pointed out the black spots in Kenya's foreign policy and the complexities it faces in navigating the international terrain.
Kenya unveils its new foreign policy amidst shifting global dynamics characterized by the transition from geopolitics to geoeconomics. Like many African countries, Kenya is faced with the dilemma of whether to stick to the traditional political allegiance to the West or to reorient its priorities towards the economic spark of emerging powers like China, which, according to Macharia Munene, a professor of history and international relations, are giving the West a run for their money by offering alternatives.
China delivers on the promise. You may not agree on some things, but they deliver. China's prices are always reasonable, more reasonable than any other. So if you have a choice between something costing $100 and another $200, which one will you take?
Kenya's foreign policy has been vexed upon the principle of non-alignment. In the context of the changing global dynamics, Professor Munene explores the options for the country on whether to face the East, the West, or home.
There are times when it has to deal with the United States, and it should. There are times when it has to deal with China, and it should, on Kenya's terms of interest. There are times when it has to deal with Russia. Yeah? And it should.
The diplomatic complexities Kenya is facing came to the fore during the 3-day Africa tour by former Iranian president, the late Ibrahim Raisi. The bilateral talks he had with President Ruto at State House Nairobi was quickly overshadowed by the controversy of the visit, which seemed to have placed Kenya in between a delicate relationship between Iran and its global adversaries.
Have we seen the fruits of that? We don't know. We have yet to see. And maybe we've seen the fruits. The Israelis were not very happy. And even the Americans were not very happy. And Ruto was in the business of trying to please the Americans.
The AUC chairmanship race also forms another key dynamic in Kenya's diplomacy. While the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga seems to be on the upward trajectory after bagging support of key continental figures, he will still have to face two other candidates, including Djibouti's Mohamed Ali Yusuf and Madagascar's Richard James Randriamandrato.
The other heads of state who are going to be the voters, how much do they trust Kenya to do the right thing, given the mistakes we've been making? See, they are also reading this, they are Adani papers.
The outcome of the vote, which is slated for February 2025, will also speak volumes about President Ruto's weight in the African Union. But until that happens, closer home in the East African community, President Ruto takes over as the chair of the region's Heads of State Summit, a top decision-making organ of the bloc. This is after DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi, who was expected to take over from South Sudan's President Salva Kiir, failed to attend the summit in Arusha. Somalia, which was in line, is still in process of aligning with the community protocols, and President Samia Suluhu would have taken the baton, passing it to Ruto, citing other commitments. But what will it take to successfully navigate the rough terrain in the bloc that is marred with, among others, conflict and trade barriers?
I think he needs to work extra hard because of the question of believability. You know, there is a time he was supposed to lead the IGAD thing, and Sudan told him to get lost. Didn't want him anyway. Not a very good picture, And I think he has a little problem with Congo. So how to allay suspicion of the various neighbors, whether it's Suluhu, Museveni, Kagame, Tshisekedi, Salva Kiir, and the guy in Somalia.
Safin Acheng Omar, Citizen TV.
Now, Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye will stay in custody for another week before his application for bail is heard. The trial at a court-martial in Uganda was adjourned on Monday to December the 10th to allow time for senior counsel Martha Karua, who will be lead counsel, to obtain a temporary practicing license in Uganda from the Ugandan council. Besigye was picked up in Nairobi 2 weeks ago by Ugandan agents before being driven to Uganda and locked up in military jail. Together with his co-accused, he faces 4 charges, which include being found with 2 pistols and ammunition and seeking to buy weapons from foreigners in the Geneva, Athens, and Nairobi.
The humiliating body search that I was subjected to twice, and all members of the legal profession were subjected to. First at the gate, then as we entered the courtroom, another body search.
In the meantime, Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom entered its 4th phase with the caravan beginning the tour of Nairobi. Nairobi residents turned out in large numbers where they received gift hampers from Safaricom officials led by Safaricom Chief Executive Officer Peter Ndegwa. The Safaricom caravan, in partnership with Royal Media Services, started off at Kenyatta Market before making its way to Dagoretti Corner, Kawangware and Kangemi areas where residents were gifted with goats, chicken, phones, airtime, among the items. Gatete Njoroge was there.
The 4th edition of the Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom kicked off in style at Nairobi's Kenyatta Market. Safaricom top officials led by the CEO Peter Ndegwa and Royal Media Services Director for ICT and Radio Fred Afune flagged off the caravan. And what an early way to celebrate Christmas for Nairobi residents than having a taste of chicken and a new smartphone courtesy of Safaricom. Here, meat vendors at the market were not left behind in making their Christmas a memorable one.
We want to reward our customers. We want to celebrate our customers for being with us for 24 years.
We also want to educate our customers about our products, about how to ensure that they guard their money and also data from fraudsters. But also we want to reassure our customers that their data is always safe, secure, and also our network is always on.
Wananchi wametupokea kwa njia nzuri, wakisikiza vituo vyetu vya radio na televisheni pamoja na partners wetu Safaricom. Tunapatiana zawadi, tunasambaza furaha. Watu wamefurahia kila mahali tulikuwa, kwa hivyo tunatarajia Nairobi pia. Sasa wiki hii tuko Nairobi.
From Kenyatta Market, the caravan headed straight to Dagoretti Corner. Here more residents turned up. From the young to the old, the allure of Safaricom goodies brought them all out.
Niko mshindi wa kuku, t-shirt. Imagine.
Tumekaa na watu wa Safaricom, ukitaka pesa mkopo wanakukopesha. Wameleta ile kitu inaitwa pochi, mtu kureverse pesa yako haizi reverse. Sasa kumaanisha Safaricom wanalinda sisi kama baba na mama.
The next stop was in Kawangware. From Congo stage to stage 2 and stage 56, residents were ready to join in the celebration. Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom providing the residents an opportunity to interact with their favorite radio presenters from Royal Media Services. The mood was the same in Mountain View and Kangemi, where the caravan stopped to spread the joy. Local artists entertaining the crowd with their favorite tunes. The week-long caravan is expected to tour Kahawa Sukari, Zimmerman, Githurai 44 and 45, and Kasarani on Tuesday to celebrate 24 years of transforming lives. The caravan had toured Rift Valley, Western, Nyanza, and Central regions. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, politicians have been urged to stop using the Taifa Care Health Reform Plan as a tool to settle political scores. Speaking during a free medical camp in Chepsaita, Uasin Gishu, President William Ruto's aide Farouk Kibet defended the president's healthcare program, which he says will ensure equality for all. And as Marian Nyambura now reports, preparations for the Great Chepsaita cross-country, slated for December 7th, is in top gear.
In their numbers, residents of Uasin Gishu County turned up for a free medical camp at Chepsaita on Monday. The camp giving residents a chance to interact in readiness for the second edition of Chepsaita Great Cross Country Marathon.
5,000 people coming to seek medical services in a medical camp, which is very, very commendable. And I want to say that this is just a start of unearthing what people are going through in the communities.
Social health insurance rollout dominating the speeches, with Health PS Mary Mudhoni and Chepsaita race patron Farouk Kibet using the opportunity to popularize the health program.
We don't want a sick county. Hatutaki county ambayo watu ni wagonjwa. Sasa nataka hivi kuuliza county zetu, all sub counties, hii exercise ya kuregister wananchi lazima muende mketi chini, tukome kufanya siasa na mambo ya matibabu. Beneficiary ni mgonjwa, sio mwenye kuzungumza. Ukiwa na afya unaweza kuzungumza maneno yote.
SHA again is emphasizing on screening, that the package that you get from SHA and the benefit that you get from SHA comes with screening. You do not have to wait until you're unwell so that you go to hospital. Please get checked.
With 5 days to the Chepsaita Marathon, organizers say all is set ahead of the event.
Na mimi nataka niseme mumeona umati vile imejitokeza.
We will also be registering 24 customers. As you know, we are celebrating our 24th birthday, so we will be taking 24 customers. We'll register them on SHA and pay for them for those 24 months, so that we also make sure that we're supporting our local community in all the government platforms that it's aiding in terms of our health.
Marian Nyambura, Citizen TV.
Now in business, the Kenya Bankers Association is advocating for a significant cut in the central bank rate to signal lower lending rates in a bid to boost the economy in 2025. The association highlights the low overall inflation rate at 2.7% in October, with food and fuel prices easing, which has anchored inflation expectations below 5%. According to the association, economic growth still faces risks from constrained financing in the private sector, with private sector credit growth dipping due to structural rigidities that have constrained faster declining rates. The bankers believe that significant rate cuts will facilitate declines in market rates. The Monetary Policy Committee is set to hold its last meeting of the year on the 5th of December. And as the world prepares to mark the International Day for Persons with Disabilities, financial institutions have been urged to invest more in catering for persons with disability. The latest banking industry report shows that less than 1% of financial institutions operating in Kenya have incorporated persons with disability in their workforce. Jimmy Mbogo has more on the efforts the banking industry has to make towards inclusive banking.
With Kenya boasting of over 80% financial inclusion rate in the country, people with disability have nothing to write home about. According to the Kenya Bankers Association Banking Industry Persons with Disability Access Report, less than 1% of employees in 54.5% of the banks are persons with disability, while only 6.9% of all commercial banks have more than 5% of their service providers reported as PWDs.
If the 1.1 million persons living with disability were to be incorporated into the financial services sector, would have 492 million additional tax that the government would get. We would have 4.38 million revenue for SMEs, I think it's billion, and 2.19 billion profit for banks, if we included them, as Iram is saying. So we are losing out on this by actually not involving our persons with disability.
People living with disabilities, as members of our staff workforce, we're only at 1%. So it's a challenge that we need to intentionally work on this, be able to see within the next year, within the next 2 years, can we move that to 2%, 3%? You know, for government, there's actually a target of, for the government workforce, every institution ought to be at 5%. So that's government by law. But as private sector, I think we need to even be far ahead of government.
The report further shows that 78.8% of banks have made their physical infrastructure PWD friendly, including ramps and over-the-counter services. However, only 36.4% of ATMs are accessible to PWDs. Additionally, 55.2% of the banks offer dedicated desk-level cashier services for persons with disability, while only 27.3% of banks have trained employees in sign language. Further, only 13.8% of the banks have remediated their digital platform for accessibility.
Right? So some of these apps are not friendly to those with dyslexia. They're not friendly to those with epilepsy. They're not friendly to those with low vision. Right? So looking at all this and saying some of these things are quick kills. We just need to tweak some of these back-end codes and it becomes accessible, and let's run with it. The biggest challenge for all of you. Why are we not employing persons with disabilities? That's a quick kill.
Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Digital taxi hailing service Yego Mobility has introduced an in-app SOS button through a partnership with security solutions provider SGA Security. The new feature will enable passengers and drivers to send emergency alerts directly to SGA's rapid response team, which will provide immediate response during critical situations and real-time monitoring. The SOS button is part of Yego's broader safety framework, which includes ride tracking, speeding alerts, and 24/7 call center support. The partnership integrates SGA security infrastructure into Yego's operations to enhance safety measures across its platform.
Unfortunately, there have been abductions and even murder of taxi drivers, and passengers have also been abducted, and there have been cases of molestation. If there is no avenue for a timely response, then we are leaving the scope wide for such incidents to repeat. We believe that with SGA and with the fact that we would be able to call upon their security team for a rapid response, we would be able to curb these events from taking place again. In terms of cost, YEGO will be bearing the cost of the security service. So for every incident, YEGO will be paying. The passengers and the drivers would not have to pay anything additional for the service.
So at any one time that we do get an alert from the YEGO control room or from a panic button on the YEGO devices, we'll be able to respond and send our nearest vehicle for intervention wherever it may be within the country.
Now, Mabati Rolling Mills has opened its 12th showroom in the country, located in Voi town of Taita Taveta County. The new showroom seeks to satisfy demand for building materials in the strategically positioned town by offering a range of residential, commercial and industrial building solutions. The showroom will also provide personalized consultation services with industry experts and employment opportunities in a bid to spur economic growth and community empowerment in Voi.
Tumeshikana mikono na serikali katika hizo shughuli za ujenzi wa nyumba za bei nafuu, na kulingana na itategemea hali ya nyumba zile zinajengwa, kwa sababu kama ni nyumba ambayo itahitaji mabati juu, basi tutacheza katika hiyo space. Lakini kuna nyumba zingine labda roof inawekwa concrete, basi hapo itakuwa sasa tumepigwa chenga kidogo, lakini kipolicy tunasaidiana.
And finally, in business, naturally endowed with resources, among them botanicals, African originals are making use of these locally sourced botanicals, such as mint and fruits like mangoes and pineapples, to make a range of ciders, gins and iced teas. Edward Choya tells us more in our Made in Kenya segment.
At his farm in Kalamba, Makueni County, Lazarus Ngolota is tending to his mangoes under the rains. He is one of the farmers supplying mangoes to the Kalamba fruit processing plant in Makueni.
Niliingilia kulima matunda kwa sababu the need for fruits, it is growing all over worldwide. We have supplied with the processors like the one in Makueni fruit processing plant, and another one in Machakos, and all over the country. But also we have the local market. That is the one you buy in the market and come and eat fresh from there.
At the plant, the mangoes are processed into mango puree. African Originals, the makers of different products under the name Kenya Originals or KO, then pick the puree from here to use as raw material for some of its products.
Kenya Originals started because when I moved to Kenya, one of the things that is the most amazing thing about Kenya is all its amazing ingredients. So I wanted to create craft beverages that use real ingredients from Kenya. We make ciders, spirits, tonics, and iced teas. We started with the cider, and the idea was to make Kenya's version of wine. So make sure that we make mango and chili cider with apple mangoes from Makueni, which is the best mangoes from the best region in Kenya.
Kenya Originals has since added more products to its portfolio. These include pineapples, mint and passion fruit products. The startup works closely with farmers like Ngolota to supply the raw materials.
We support local Kenyan farmers and have been working with them, as well as local creatives. So we've worked a lot with the creative industry to create a brand with them that resonates with the consumer here. The reception's been amazing. We're 7 years in the running. We're now market leaders in supermarkets and in cider against any other cider. So it just shows that there is a lot of opportunity in Kenya for new products to come and bring something new to the consumer.
Kenya Originals has employed 120 people to help with the production of the beverages, most of them trained on the job. Ian Cheriot is in charge of the production process.
We do use a variety of raw materials, especially fruits like pineapple, passion, mangoes. We also use a lot of herbs, things like mint. We also use roots like ginger. We then proceed to the cleaning process. We then juice them for the mint. We then be able to prepare an extraction of the mint. We then are able to blend with our fermented apple cider base. The fermentation process would take up to 14 days. We then blend with the juices to make sure that you're getting the right flavor profiles as need be. And then we proceed to processes of filtration, processes of pasteurization, and then labeling.
Despite the success, some concerns were raised about KO products.
We take every complaint that we get incredibly seriously. We took those complaints on board and rechecked every single batch that we've done in the last 4 months to check the quality. We didn't find anything as an issue or an amiss, but you know, these things help us to tighten up and make sure that in the future we continue to be high quality as we currently are.
African Originals now intends to find more markets beyond Kenya.
We do have plans to expand across East Africa, and we're also already in the UK, and looking forward to also innovating into new products. That's the thing we love doing, and so you'll see more from us there.
Edward Chwea, Made in Kenya, Citizen TV.